because its state is transformed. Suffering is threefold. The imagined nature is suffering of that which is grasped, because it is grasped by the support, i.e., mind, of the two graspings, self and dharmas. The dependent on others is suffering as the characteristic of events, because its characteristic is the threefold suffering. The perfected is suffering of union, because it is united with suffering. The three kinds of emptiness are emptiness as absence of nature. This is the imagined naturel, because its nature is non-existent. Emptiness as different nature. This is the dependent on others, because it differs from its falsely grasped nature. Inherent emptiness. This is the perfected nature, because its nature is revealed by the twofold emptiness.
The three kinds of no-self are no-self as absence of characteristics. This is the imagined nature, because the characteristics of a self do not exist. No-self as the characteristic of difference. This is the nature that is dependent on others, because it differs from the falsely grasped characteristics of a self. No-self of its own characteristic. This is the perfected nature, because its own characteristic is revealed by no-self.
3. Origination. The three kinds of truth of origination are origination as habit energy, that is, the imagined nature grasps the habit energy, and its name, of imagined nature, is metaphorically established from the grasping of that habit energy. Origination as uniform generation, that is, action and passions, and thus it is the nature that is dependent on others. Origination as non-separation, that is, suchness not yet separated from bondage, and for that reason it is the perfected naturel.
4. Cessation. The three kinds of truth of cessation are cessation as self-nature, because its self-nature is not born, and therefore it is the imagined nature. Cessation of the two graspings, that is, cessation as a result of discrimination, because the two graspings are not born, and therefore it is the dependent nature. Inherent cessation, that is, because it is true suchness, and is therefore the perfected nature.
5. Path. The three kinds of truth of the path are path as recognition, because it is able to know the imagined, and is therefore the imagined nature. Path as eternal elimination, because lost the dependent nature, it is able to eliminate the nature that is dependent on others. Path as bringing about realization, is the perfected nature, because it can realize the perfected. However, path as recognition is also common to the last two natures, i.e., the dependent on others and the perfected. 7 triads and 3 natures have been explained by matching them in sequence. This correspondence with the 3 natures may be metaphorical or real and should be understood according to reason.
How are the 3 natures related to the objective realms that are activated by the 3 doors to liberation? In principle, all doors of liberation are common to the 3 natures, but in accordance with specific characteristics. The 3 natures are emptiness, desirelessness, and signlessness. Also, based on these, the 3 kinds of patience regarding the non-birth of dharmas are born: patience with regard to inherent non-birth, which is related to the imagined nature; patience with regard to non-birth by itself, which is related to the dependent on others; patience with regard to non-birth of passions and suffering, which is related to the perfected nature. These 3 are the objects of those patiences, in this order.
How do these 3 natures include the 2 truths? You should know that the relative contains the 3 kinds of natures, but the ultimate truth is solely the perfected nature. The relative is threefold: fictionally relative, operationally relative, and revelationally relative, which, you should know, are the 3 natures respectively. The ultimate truth is also threefold: ultimate truth of truth, that is, true suchness, because it is the ultimate's truth; ultimate truth of acquisition, that is, nirvana, because the ultimate is the same as the truth; ultimate truth of performance, that is, the holy path, because it has the ultimate for its truth. Therefore, all are included in the perfected nature, because they are unchanging or devoid of error, as the case may be.
To what knowledges are the 3 natures related? The imagined is totally unrelated to knowledge, because, being devoid of a substance of its own, it is not a condition as object. Fools grasp it as existing, but the wise know it as non-existing, so it can be said that it is the object of knowledge for both foolish and wise. The nature that is dependent on others is related to the 2 kinds of knowledge, and the perfected nature is only the object of the knowledge of the wise.
Of the 3 natures, which are metaphorical and which are real? Because the imagined is falsely posited, it can be said to be metaphorical, as a nature. Being devoid of characteristics of a substance, it is neither metaphorical nor real. The nature that is dependent on others exists really and metaphorically. It can be said to be metaphorically real because its nature consists of combinations, of real Dharma, continuities, of dharmas, and different states. Mind, mental activities, and form are born from conditions and may therefore be said to exist really. If there are no real dharmas, metaphorical dharmas do not exist either, because metaphors are established on the basis of real causes. The perfected nature alone really exists, because it is not established in reliance on other conditions.
Are these three different or non-different? It must be said that they are neither, because they have no separate substances and because the imagined, that which originates from conditions, and the real truth are different. These three natures are unlimited in their variety of interpretations. Fearing prolixity, we have indicated the essentials.
6. The threefold naturelessness. If there are three natures, why did the world-honored one teach that all dharmas are wholly natureless? The verses of Vasubandhu say, on the basis of these three natures, the threefold naturelessness is established. Therefore, the Buddha taught with a hidden intention that all dharmas are natureless. The first is naturelessness of characteristics.
The next is naturelessness of self-existence. The last is the nature that results from the privation of the former. Self and dharmas that are grasped. This is the ultimate truth of all dharmas, and is also the same as true suchness, because it is eternally so in its nature. It is the true nature of consciousness only.
The treatise says that the subsequently discussed three kinds of naturelessness are established on the basis of the previously mentioned three natures, that is, naturelessness of characteristics, birth, and the ultimate truth. Therefore the Buddha taught with a hidden intention that all dharmas are natureless, but not that these natures are completely non-existent.
The words taught with a hidden intention show that it is not the final truth. That is, even though the last two natures, i.e., the dependent on others and the perfected, are not non-existent, still there are fools who superimpose really existing selves and dharmas with self-natures upon them and falsely grasp them. This is called their imagined nature. In order to eliminate this grasping, the Buddha, the world-honored one, spoke in general of the naturelessness of both the existing, i.e., last two natures, and the non-existing first nature.
How are these three established on the basis of those three natures? Naturelessness of characteristics is established on the basis of the first, imagined, nature, because substance and characteristics are absolutely non-existent, like flowers in the sky. Naturelessness of birth is established on the basis of the next, the dependent on others, nature. These, things originating in this way, are all like illusory things that are born of a host of conditions. They have not, as in falsely grasped, a nature of their own, and therefore it is said in a manner of speaking that they are naturelessness, but their nature is not completely non-existent. Naturelessness of ultimate truth is established on the basis of the last, perfected, nature. It is said in a manner of speaking to be natureless by virtue of the ultimate truth being separated from the first nature of imagined selves and dharmas, but it is not by nature wholly non-existent, just as great space, although pervading the many forms, is still revealed by the naturelessness of the many forms. Even though the dependent on others is not ultimate truth, it can also be said to be the naturelessness of the ultimate truth, but it is not said to be because it is confused with the second, nature.
This, perfected, nature is the ultimate truth of all dharmas, because it is the truth of the ultimate truth of all dharmas. However, the truth of ultimate truth is, in brief, of four kinds: worldly ultimate truth, i.e., aggregates, sense bases, sense fields, etc., ultimate truth of principles, i.e., the four truths of suffering, etc., ultimate truth of attainment, i.e., the true suchness of the twofold emptiness, ultimate truth, i.e., the sole real realm of the Dharma.
Of these, the perfected nature is the last of the above four ultimate truths, because it is the truth that is activated by the ultimate path. In order to exclude the first three forms of ultimate truth, it adds, this is the ultimate truth of all dharmas and is also the same as true suchness. True means genuine, indicating that it is not false. Suchness means eternally so, which expresses its changelessness. This means that it is called true suchness because this reality is eternally so in its nature in all states, which is to say, the profound, non-false truth.
The word also shows that this nature also has many names, such as the realm of the Dharma, the limit of reality, etc., as is extensively explained in accordance with the meaning in other treatises. This perfected nature is the true nature of consciousness only. That is, the nature of consciousness only is, in brief, of two kinds, false, that is, the imagined, and real, that is, the perfected. The verses use the words true nature in order to exclude the false. Again, there are two natures, the relative, that is, the dependent on others, and ultimate truth, that is, the perfected. The verses, therefore, speak of true nature in order to exclude the relative. The last three verses, i.e., verses 23 to 25, show that when various scriptures use the words naturelessness, it is not the final truth, and those who are wise should not depend on them as generally excluding all dharmas as utterly natureless.